Welcome to Crime Corner Investigate. What is going on with the gloves with the Nancy Guthrie missing case? Oh my God. I just posted a video. Let me get my resources close by. A couple nights ago about a timeline in the missing case of Nancy Guthrie. And I'll kind of go over it real quick. Let me get to it so I'm quoting properly. February 1st at 2:28 a.m. in the middle of the night, Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker goes off. So this is the timeline that they believe around that time she was abducted. We know that she was abducted. We just don't know what the reason is. Burglary gone bad, for ransom, to threaten her daughter, Savannah, who's a journalist. We just don't know. But she was abducted because she cannot walk, which the public did not know she couldn't walk, because she was shown in a video, a hometown video with her daughter Nancy, with her daughter Savannah, back in December, which just showed her at a restaurant, and she did not look vulnerable. So the public did not know she couldn't walk. So if they were trying to make it look like she just wandered off, it didn't work because she couldn't walk that far. So even if she had dementia, which the family claimed she was sharp as a tack, she didn't walk off. And then there were other parts of the crime scene or the house where they knew she was abducted. So that's not in question. She was abducted. On February 2nd, ground searches, air searches, drone searches, search and rescue dogs searched the whole area all day and all night looking for Nancy Guthrie. And then on February 2nd, KOLD TV in Tucson receives the first ransom note. It wasn't public, but the next day, Harvey Levin or TMZ claimed they received one and they went public with that information. That's the timeline that I researched, that I found. If any timeline that you find is different, that's dated at that time, let me know. If it's a recent date, it doesn't matter. We're going back in time to look at media timeline and the coverage, because there's a lot of disturbing things that bothered me in my video a couple of days ago that I posted in my video about the timeline and what really happened. And it kind of told me a lot about something shady was going on with this case right from the get-go. So February 3rd, TMZ reports they received a ransom note, and it goes out to the public. During that week, social media exploded with videos of Savannah interviewing the Epstein victims, which happened several years ago. So that could be the start of the media circus. That even if Nancy Guthrie's abduction had nothing to do with her daughter interviewing Epstein victims, some powerful people may have thought it was and wanted to change the narrative. We don't know. Just thinking before something might happen, you try to kibosh things before in the beginning. You do crisis management right from the get-go. So the early weeks that something happens is the most important to track. And unfortunately, posts are missing and gone. So it's important to save those posts the minute something happens, because you can't always go back in time. So on February 10th, so that whole week, Savannah's interviews with the Epstein victims is on Instagram and X and what other social media accounts that people watch or are on is all over the place. On February 10th, Kash Patel posted a video of a masked man in front of Nancy Guthrie's house trying to dismantle her Ring camera. Now, during a press release the week before, the sheriff tells us that it was shut down, so there was no way to get any video footage. She didn't have a subscription, something to that effect. So to our knowledge, you couldn't get any video from that camera, but Kash Patel gets it. He posts a video on X. Instead of sending it to the lead detective to decide what they want to do with it, maybe have a press release posting the picture of the man with no details. So that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, to this day, the sheriff has only made one little mention of the timing of the video. There's been no press release about it. There's no timestamps on the videos. Some people speculate that it was 2 different days, that it wasn't even that night. So there's a lot of questions about that video. So that video was it rose my anxiety how it all happened. So that was on the 10th. Then on February 15th, I found an article, and if you go back in my timeline video from a couple of days ago, there's an article that says multiple gloves were found. Up to 16 rubber gloves were found in the area. Now, that's always bothered me. They claim that that search and rescue had them hanging out of their pockets and they fell out of their pockets. And it's just always bothered me. Even in my video a couple days ago, I said, this is just crazy. I felt like somebody planted him there to change the narrative of this case or put a monkey wrench in that investigation. It's possible the sheriff was getting close. They had asked people for camera footage. They used license plate readers. So anybody in the busy streets surrounding that area, they had video of their vehicles in the middle of the night. There's not that many vehicles in the middle of the night. So anyway, I always felt that was suspicious. No one ever mentioned that it was suspicious all this time. Everybody believed that investigators and search and rescue dropped gloves. Now, there were search dogs that Sunday searching for Nancy. If there was any gloves around there. I mean, so what did people think, that the search and rescue dropped them after the search dogs? I just don't believe it. I never did believe it. I always think things off the beaten path. I never think the same thing that mainstream media is thinking. So when you're watching my channel, I will have some quirky thoughts. But when it raises my anxiety, then I always think something's wrong. And I don't always know what it is. But that raised my anxiety enough to start posting videos. All right. So recently, Harvey from TMZ is upset because he finds out his FBI contact says that his ransom note is legit. But on another newspaper, and I forget which one it was, New York Times or something like that, says that none of them are legit. none of the ransom notes, or FBI believes none of them are legit. And I think there's supposed to be a press release regarding that, which I could never find. So if anybody can find links to anything that I'm talking about that I don't have the link to, or if I'm wrong about my timeline or everything, if you have stuff that's dated from early on that first week or the second week, let me know, because that's what my research showed. So he's upset about the legitimacy of those notes. I watched his video. I might have missed something. I don't know. That's what caught my eye, and I wanted to post about it. Well, this morning, I'm watching another YouTube podcast channel, Break the Case with Jen Coffindoffer. I like watching her. And I do have the link to her video and what she posted, what she was talking about in the transcripts, where she says that Harvey Levin believes, or in an early on in his investigation with the Tyler Robinson case, he broke the case with who is allegedly going to have a court trial. He's been arrested for the murder of Charlie Kirk. She claims that that Harvey Levin, or TMZ, broke the first incident of somebody, a neighbor in a nearby area, adjacent area, seeing Tyler running around with a gun. Now, I couldn't find the original post that she said that, so it might have been on Instagram or X, but I could not find that original post. If you could find it, let me know. I do believe she's seen it, but that was very early on after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Was it the next day? Was it that day? I'm interested to find out if anyone can find that original post that she's talking about. I find that interesting that he talked to a neighbor. I could not find anything. And my research, I couldn't find anything, but I found it interesting. Yeah, he does true crime. But now that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is he's saying, and she states it in her video from this morning or last night, that Harvey Levin is saying, and I couldn't find that video either, unless it's in one of his videos that I missed, that he is saying that media may have tampered with evidence, a piece of evidence in the Nancy Guthrie case. We don't know what day. We don't know what he's referring to. She doesn't know. Nancy Grace even posted something about that, him saying that same thing too. So I'm not sure if it was the video I watched with two angry men that he just posted, and I just missed that part, because that would have just killed me. But so he's saying that his FBI informant, or his friend, or whoever from the FBI told him that, and he just never said anything, or now he's throwing it out there. He's going to throw people under the bus. Is he trying to throw people under the bus? What's his reasoning for saying that now? And is it true? And it's something I thought all this time, since all those gloves kept showing up. I never believed somebody just dropped them. I do believe. So anyway, Nancy Grace and Jen Coffindoffer with Break the Case both, that's the only two channels I've seen recently, think that it's a glove. But nobody thinks that the glove was planted because of the poor restaurant worker guy that was detained. Nobody thinks that. Everybody thinks that the rest of the gloves were just dropped by investigators because they're the same kind of gloves. Now, mind you, these are the same kind of gloves that showed up after Porch Guy video that Kash Patel posted, and that's been all over the place for months. The connection is just too weird that TMZ is coming up with saying that. Now, apparently, they might not have enough to arrest the person, the media person who planted the glove, but it totally makes sense because I thought it might have been a media person too, because you got to remember the day that Nancy Guthrie went missing, that next day, if you want to, it's the same date, the 1st, there were search and rescue all over. There were volunteer search people. There might have been news people that knew about her being missing. The public didn't find out until the next day, until Monday. But there was many people that knew, enough people that knew that possibly could have sent the ransom note. That was my whole video the other day, was about the ransom notes being legit. Maybe the first one was, but the rest of them weren't, because FBI was saying they weren't legit, or possibly one of them's legit. And when I look at the timeline, on the 1st or the 2nd was actually the first ransom note was sent. Who could have did that quick? That was involved in trying to change the narrative of the case that wouldn't have been related to her abduction. Like, let's say it was somebody that was afraid that they might get accused for it, or it might be considered an Epstein thing, or, or whatever. They didn't have much time to think about it to be posting that, sending it to a news station. It's not a whole lot of time unless it was the people that did it. But that whole day, the public found out. So there's many people that could have exploited the situation and started sending those notes out. So that's why I think they think they're not legit. And I don't think they're legit too, because once it went out to the public. Now, TMZ is on the 3rd that told the public about receiving a ransom note. None of us knew about the ransom note from the 2nd. Think about that. Chew on that for a minute. So Harvey Levin undermined the case by bringing it up. The lead investigator might not have wanted anyone to know. And that brought on a flood of fake people trying to exploit the situation. Apparently with the guy that was just arrested and let go on probation for sending a fake ransom note. So think about that. But anyway, I just think this case has been a circus since Kash Patel posted that video on X, and it hasn't stopped. And it's just getting weirder and weirder as we go on. And I posted my video the other day. Somebody is trying to change the narrative in this case. It's just there's too many actors. There was too much sheriff bashing, especially about his record from over 20 years ago. I just found that really strange that somebody dug so deep to get into his record. Nobody else finds that strange, just me. I don't know. I just, you know, and everybody trashed him so much as if he was the one, he was Gator. He wasn't the lead investigator. And in fact, weeks later, he's trying to plead with the public saying, I'm not the lead investigator. He's the spokesperson. Now, he may be an asshole. It doesn't matter. There is a missing woman, and you just screwed up any chance for the persons involved to be prosecuted when you start trashing the sheriff. Fox 2 News was the first one posting the trashing of the sheriff. We don't need to go in details. It's been all over the internet. You know, that's just strange. Why? Why would you do that? Because I'll tell you what, if it was my missing mother and I found out that somebody was, a news station was trashing the lead investigator, I would be livid. My attorneys would be contacting them. I just can't. I don't care what the reason is. There's an investigation going on. Nobody finds that strange. I'm the only one. That's why I am starting to post videos. I'm sick and tired of listening to flying monkeys flying around. And for those of you that don't know what a flying monkey is, you know, let's just say you're at work and somebody's mad at somebody and you're at the water cooler in the break room and they're just festering about what this person did and they're trying to suck in to get mad at that person too. And so now you're mad at that person and then you start trouble with the other person, with the person that your friend's mad at. But you have nothing to do with that. You're that person's flying monkey. So when an analogy would be Fox 2 News is posting all this crap about the sheriff being at a basketball game and then all about his record and all of this stuff popping up. Everybody that grabbed that footage and ran with it on their channels are the flying monkeys. So when you have somebody in the media, you know, not just podcasters, but it can be podcasters too. But when you have media that is paid to do something, to inject information in the media about a case, that changes what the public thinks about that case instead of what the facts are. And it happens all the time, especially in these murder trials that I'm watching. Everybody thinks this way, but the facts don't line up. So I just think that you need to be careful, consider your source, and don't be a flying monkey. I mean, it's hard not to be in the you know, crime world. It's hard not to be in the crime world, but I beg of you, be careful in your personal life being a flying monkey, because people will suck you in when you have not. It's not your bone to pick. If they're mad at somebody, let them take care of it. Tell them you don't want to hear about the gossip. You know, you don't want nothing to do with it. But so, and I'll give you another example. If anybody's seen House of Cards, I think I pulled it up here. In House of Cards, if I can find it, I think her name was Zoe. Oh, I can't find it. If I can find it, my computer's running really slow. Where there's a season where they planted a leak about Zoe Barnes so that there would be a fake scandal to distract from a bill. This was in House of Cards. That goes on. That goes on. They plant information to twist things around so people will think things. So you have to be careful what you're thinking. There was a huge political race going on with the sheriff before this case happened. So a lot of it could have to do with that. He may be an asshole, but why, even if he is, even if my boss was an asshole, this is not the time to go public with it. That's inappropriate. It's not ethical. And I don't care what anyone says. That is not okay. This whole case has been a circus, and there's people responsible for it. I don't know who, but I'm just stating what's going on, and somebody is causing it to be a circus. There's many players in it. So does it have anything to do with the Epstein files? I don't know. I don't know. It's possible that people think it has to do with the Epstein files. Think about that. And that may scare some people. So I want to know what you think. Let me see if there was anything I wanted to talk about. What do people think about the Harvey Levin throwing an informant telling him that they think that somebody planted evidence in the Nancy Guthrie case? We don't know what evidence it is. What do you think about him spilling that tea? Isn't that strange? There's something going on. There's an undercurrent going on. And then the same video that Break the Case with Jen Coffendoffer posted, she talks about TMZ or Harvey Levin, I'm not sure which, was the first one, breaking ground with somebody in the other area seeing Tyler Robinson running around with a gun or something in his pocket. That was early on. I cannot find that clip. If you can find that clip, let me know. Because I can find a news station that printed something about it. But when did he say that? Was it on was it on Instagram or X or something like that? Because that could be an injection of something. And I'm going to be following the Tyler Robinson case. I did listen to it while I was at work today, to the court trial, the preliminary hearing on what evidence, I guess, they're gonna have during the trial, which isn't going to start for several months. The judge seems pretty good so far. I'm definitely suspicious. Some of the channels I've listened to, Nate Eaton, for one, talks about who was there, which is Charlie Kirk's wife, Donald Trump's son, the victims. But he doesn't mention Tyler Robinson's family being there. We do know that the father turned him in, or that's what we were told. I don't have any evidence that he said that. I did hear on a channel someone was in the courtroom and the grandfather does not believe he's guilty, and that was his gun. I think it was Candace Owens' channel. And it was just kind of the video. No pictures were on video. So, I mean, you can't really authenticate that. But the fact, that's not, we don't know if that's a fact or not, but we do know what's a fact. Nobody is posting the man that's on trial for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, his side of the family. So that makes it look like nobody is supporting him on his side. Think about, chew on that for a minute. Why? I want to hear what his family has to say. Why is no media, Nate Eaton, specifically you, why aren't you trying to talk to the family on Tyler Robinson's side? I would like to hear that, because people are changing the narrative right out the gate with this kid. And we don't know if he's guilty or not. He has not been tried. He's considered innocent until found guilty. There was another suspicious thing about the Tyler Robinson case. I'm trying to think what it was now. I can't remember. I'll think of it in a minute. But there, as the trial goes on, if I feel anxiety building, I will definitely be posting on it. I have like a meter. I have a BS meter. and it works really good. The minute I hear something that in my hair on my neck starts standing up, I know something isn't right, but I don't always know what it is. But there was something else with it. Well, supposedly the grandfather said, which I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody in my audience may know if this is true, that the rifle that killed Charlie Kirk was the grandfather's, and the grandfather said that he knew it wasn't his rifle because it would have blew his head off or something. It would have done more damage than it did. So I don't know if anybody knows about rifles or whatever, if anybody has any speculation on that. Oh, I know what it was. In the beginning of the court trial, I was at work, so I didn't hear it too well, that security or whatever, or police officer or whoever he was, right after the shooting, seen a gun holster on the ground. And then didn't pick it up. I'm pretty sure I heard after the shooting. And the reason why he didn't pick it up was because he knew it was a rifle. That's just weird. It's weird that he didn't pick it up. That's just weird. So was that holster planted so that it could be used in evidence? And it didn't get picked up. So they devised something else. I'm very suspicious about the case. And I will remain suspicious until this trial's over. And if this judge doesn't run this courtroom like he should, then I really will be suspicious. Because I don't care what the media thinks. Either you have enough to try somebody for murder and get the death penalty, or you don't. So, another thing that's suspicious to me is most young guys that murder people in public have mental health issues. Tyler Robinson has not. There's nothing about him having mental health issues. So it sounds like he was pretty sane. So that's suspicious to me too. because what was his motive? They say that he had a transvestite girlfriend, boyfriend, roommate. Well, you know what I find suspicious on that? I'm in the true crime world and I've been in it for several years now. And the first time a case comes out, those web sleuthers are looking on Facebook for people that were related to the accused person. We knew early on who Tyler Robinson was. You mean to tell me nobody pulled up a Facebook or social media, anything about Tyler Robinson's roommate? Nothing? I don't know about that. In the Kohlberger case, oh boy, there were things on Reddit. There was a lot of information that web sleuthers found. But we don't know nothing about this roommate but what the media has told us. Well, I'd like to see some cold facts. If anybody's got Facebook posts from before this happened about this roommate, I would like to see it. So I'm suspicious about that. We're told that the identity of this person is hidden because they have a certain type of immunity. This was supposedly his motive for killing Charlie Kirk. And I'll tell you what else is very strange to me. These are just things I'm noticing. When Charlie Kirk was shot, there was a student that was asking about gun violence. How coincidental is that? That's very coincidental. And if that was planned, did they know which students were going to be asking questions beforehand? Or was it just random? It's just too coincidental. Think about it for a minute. You're murdered in front of all these people with a rifle. And the question being asked when you're murdered is about gun violence, that he was, I forget what he was saying, but I think he's for the, the right to bear arms, or, that something about that. That's strange. That makes it look like it's a liberal lunatic that did it. Tyler Robinson is not liberal. So was this all staged? We don't know. But we're going to look at this trial differently than everyone else looks at the trial. And if I have time, I might do some research going back in time with Charlie Kirk before he was murdered. I know Candace Owens is saying a lot of goofy stuff. I'm not sure. I know she has suspicions, and I have my suspicions too, and a lot of people have their suspicions. So I definitely agree with her. But I'd like to look more at the media timeline, and who would have motive to kill him. Was something going to come out? Did he find out about something that he might have been vocal about? Did somebody want to shut him up? Just like Savannah? Anyway, it's a horrific thing. And another thing is the defense attorneys want nothing to be public, which I thought that was weird. Because I thought if they thought he was innocent, they would want everything to be public. But it's possible they're afraid that the public is going to form, everybody wants him hung, this poor kid. But yeah, it looks like I have an unstable connection. So I better end the stream. I'll be following the Charlie Kirk case. But yeah, I do think some more shenanigans are going to go on with the Nancy missing case, the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. Um, you know, the fact that there's media involved and TMZ involved. When TMZ got involved with the ransom note, that stunk to me as all heck. I don't know. Nobody else thought so, but I thought that stunk. TMZ is posting about a ransom note. That just blew my mind. That just blew my, like, doesn't anybody else hear stuff and go, I know my anxiety's high and things get me like it's like pushing a button, but I don't know why. But now that we're hearing about Harvey upset that his ransom note that he received is not legit because he wanted to put money in the kitty, and is he just exploiting this situation, or is he involved in some sort of cover up or change in the narrative that they want the public to know? I mean, think about it. There'd be 2 or 3 sides to this whole story, people fighting over the narrative. There could have been somebody that abducted Nancy that wants you to think it's another group of people. And the other group of people are afraid that you might think that. This country is at its all-time high with propaganda. And for those of you that don't understand that, that's what makes you a civilized country and a democratic country, is the level of propaganda. And it's at its high right now, which means your democracy is at threat when we've got propaganda all over the place. In the crime stations is one thing, but it's everywhere. And these 2 cases, like, that's just like, put it aside. This poor family's mother's missing. They don't know if she was tortured. And let me just say this. My aunt went missing. So I'll tell you the story about my aunt. Let me have some coffee and then I got to get my dog. Several years ago, my aunt lived up north, and my cousin was going to visit her, and he lived near Detroit, where I lived. But my aunt lived up north, and he was going to visit her that day. He got there, and she wasn't there. She never showed up that day. So he called his brothers, my cousins, and then they called police. My aunt was missing for several days. She was elderly. As far as we know, I mean, did I see her several, maybe months before that? She seemed sharp as a tack to me. I didn't know. But law enforcement thought my cousin was involved. And they were looking at him, which I knew my cousin wasn't involved. But the heart-wrench feeling that your loved one is missing and you don't know if she was abducted, you don't know what happened to her, you don't know if she's suffering. I'm not very religious, but I worked with this woman and she used to pray with me every day that my aunt would be found. And the funny thing was, she's praying with me one day and she said, I think she fell in the water, because they were searching for her by the water because she lived right by the water. And when she fell, she knew, and she just said, oh, well, and she didn't try to save herself. Weeks later, they found her washed ashore. So they speculate she went for her morning walk on the pier like she always did, and she fell off the pier. My cousins later told us she was starting to get dementia. And she had drove to a nearby town to go shopping and didn't know where she was, and called one of my cousins and said, I don't know where I am. She was starting to have incidences. So my point is, Nancy Guthrie did not walk away, number one, because she couldn't walk, no matter if she had dementia or not. So if she did wander off, she couldn't go far. My second thing is the heart wrench of a family member being missing and you don't know where they are. It's the sickest feeling anyone will ever go through. And I don't care who you are, you have to understand that when you're throwing monkey wrenches and interfering with the investigation for any reason, that's pretty shitty. That is the lowest life you can be if you're interfering in an investigation. So this poor family, they can't even get justice now because of this. It's ridiculous, honestly. But anyway, we hope that they can at least recover the body. But I tell you what, chances of finding out who did this, even if we did have the right people, it appears that people are going to screw that up and tell the public a different narrative. We'll never know the truth of this case. But anyway, thank you for joining in. Like and subscribe. If I see anything more wonky, hopefully we don't hear anything more from Harvey Levin from TMZ, but or the FBI having disagreements, or there's something funny going on there. We might hear more, but hopefully I'm just going to be following the the Charlie Kirk murder, which, just remember, whether he did it or not, whatever the family thinks, we want justice for the family. We want the right person to go to prison for this. We don't want some kid that was used. So let's make sure that this trial is clean. Because if it's not clean, I'm going to be calling it out. And I might not be the same as all these other channels. I don't care. I love Laura Lee, Harvard attorney. I love watching her. And she will tell you the law part of it. I do paralegal work. I'm not an attorney, but she's really good at that. And she tries not to be on one side or the other. She gives you more of the facts. So yeah, I should probably start watching her, but that doesn't mean, another thing I wanted to mention, if you don't have enough evidence and you indict somebody for murder, the judge doesn't care if he does things the right way. You're not going to hear this on Harvard Lee's channel. I'm telling you. This is Street Connie talking. You're not going to hear, they're not going to run that court properly because they don't have enough evidence, but they want them put away because they know they did it and they could be dangerous. And they may get out on appeal later on. So they will do stuff like that sometimes. Now, the Lori Daybell case, that judge wanted to make sure she didn't get any appeals. Now, she's still appealing that they violated her speedy trial rights. We had to make sure she wasn't crazy to stand trial, because if she stood trial, she could have got an appeal on that. So I doubt if she'll get an appeal on that. And I think that was the only thing that I saw she might get an appeal on. But she's going to try everything to get an appeal. So I don't think she's going to get an appeal. Nobody wants her out. And the judge that ran that trial made sure, and each judge that ran her 3 trials made sure, But with the some cases, the judge, or for instance, the Delphi case, the guy that has been arrested and sitting in prison now and found guilty, they didn't care if that trial was proper or not. That was real shady. They didn't care if he got an appeal. They wanted him in prison. Now, if he really did it and they had enough evidence, they would have made sure that trial was run right, so he didn't get an appeal. He's going to get an appeal. So I haven't heard anything on that. He's going to get an appeal. I forget his name, but the Delphi case, he's going to get an appeal. Corey Richards, she might get an appeal. So everybody that thinks she's guilty, put that in your pipe. There was some shady shit going on in that trial too. She might get an appeal. So that's just my opinion. I'm no attorney and I don't know that much about law, but I do know I've been watching a lot of court trials. I work with a defense attorney. I don't talk to him too much about my cases because he don't follow them all, but I will ask him questions. But I've watched a lot of trials and I do paralegal work, so I have a little bit of information, but mostly it's just my opinion. You're just hearing my opinion that may not fit the mainstream opinion. So this is not the channel. If you want to hear what everybody else thinks, there's dozens of them out there. This is not the channel for you because I will have some off the beaten path. I work with somebody that we've talked about a few different trials and we disagreed on a few of them. And I felt really terrible about it because it's like, I know I'm a little off the beaten path, but I'll try to be a little more level-headed about what I think, but I'm still going to say what I think because that's the whole reason for the channel is I'm tired of watching the nonsense. So anyway, have a good night. I got to go let my dog in. And if you have any information that we talked about, please post it in comments. Like and subscribe. I'll be posting a couple times a week. Have a good evening. Thanks.